So her story is that you were in Paris, right? And she saw a couple kissing, an older couple kissing, and thought that was cute. Turns out that one of the couple was actually a guy, so it was two guys, right?
It was shocking, but
Yeah, one more.
My friend was telling me about his experience at the Howl. That he was at the Howl, and apparently there's a decent amount of cross-dressing in terms of costumes. And he'd be walking around and he'd see someone from behind, and he's like, "Oh, they got kind of nice legs." You know, and then it turns around and it's a dude, and you're like, "Oh, just tell me about this." And so, yeah, it definitely shocks you.
Yeah, so the kind of key idea here is that a lot of the differences that we create between men and women are actually just that. They're really creations. So when we think about it, we think about the different ways that we decide how to present ourselves in terms of our gender identity. So of course, a lot of the different socializing things that go into this, or the different socializing agents, are going to be things that we talked about earlier on in the semester. You're familiar with a lot of these already. The family, school, of course. Who doesn't feel like they've been somewhat socialized to their gender identity here at USU? Don't you think that just being here and interacting with your peers on some level really has a socializing effect on how you present yourself? Dating situations, perhaps? Another idea to take into consideration is, what did you do when you were a kid? What kind of toys did you play with? What kind of games did you play? Guys, what's something that you guys did when you were kids? Shoot BB guns. How many of you girls did that? Just out of curiosity. See, a couple. There's a few. All right, girls, what did you guys do when you were kids? Barbies. All right, boys. How many of you boys played with Barbies? He drove the Ferrari. Okay, all right. That works. So all of these different experiences you've had growing up, interacting with school, interacting with your family, going to church, being a kid, have really helped to shape your gender identity. Okay. So what happens when we have a shaping of a gender identity? We're going to have certain norms that are going to be expressed. These norms are going to encapsulate a whole bunch of different facets of our lives. This is going to include things like dress, speech, roles at home and at work, and ideas of how we look at sexuality as well. So when we're thinking about roles at home and at work, what's the first thing that comes to mind? If you're at home, say, and you're married, guys, what do you do? What's your role? What role do you play? I heard bring home bacon. That's a common thing. Any others? Wait for dinner. Go ahead in the back.
I don't think today the roles are quite as defined as they would have been like 30 years ago. So I don't think anybody can really say like, yeah, the guy brings home the bacon, or because today both people are bringing home money. Both people are.
And you have a very good point. Her point is that the roles are not as clearly defined as they were 50 years ago. That men and women are sharing a lot more of the different kinds of labor, especially outside of the home, bringing in the economic income. And you're absolutely right. Just out of curiosity, how many of you are married? I know I've asked this before. Married people? Okay. Of you guys, how many of you guys make the meals for your spouse? Okay. There's a decent few. Women, of you women that are married, how many of you make the meals? So actually fewer. So we are, at least anecdotally in this situation, seeing a little bit of overrepresentation. However, I will bring in some evidence a little bit later on that might kind of turn that on its head. Okay, so norms of speech, dress, rules of home, rules of work, and of course the idea of homophobia as well. How we decide what is normative in terms of our sexuality, of course. If someone like myself, this could be considered fairly masculine. Got a suit jacket on, maybe some boots and weren't looking too closely, can be construed as male. And I have been told that if I put a little bit of a mustache on and pull my hair back, I make a good-looking guy. Okay, so has anyone seen The Princess Bride? I've been told I look like him. Okay, so you don't see it? Okay, that's just what I've been told. I'm not saying that it's accurate or not. So what we're thinking about is in terms of these different norms is if someone was to see me dressed like that, a word that comes to mind is the word dyke. So if I actually facial hair on and really portray myself as masculine. Is everybody clear on what these words mean? Or do I need to elaborate? Okay, so dyke is essentially a masculine-looking woman who's usually lesbian. Bag is the same thing but for a man. A little bit more effeminate, usually gay. Okay. So the norms of speech and activity and all these different things that we have are going to really vary depending on the cultural situation that you're in. I'm reading a book right now called Born to Run about a tribe of super athletes in Mexico called the Tarahumara. And one of the things I picked up on in the process of reading this, and I just started it, is how the Tarahumara men dress. Skirts and billowy blouses. And look at this guy. I don't know if we can really see this, but this is actually like a pastel pink. Okay. How many of you guys would be cut dead wearing something like this if it's not Halloween? No? No takers? Not at all. I see one hand. Maybe two. As a joke. But you wouldn't do this seriously. But in this culture, this is typical to wear this. So we got to look at it in terms of how we are portraying our gender is really going to depend on where we are and the time even that we are. Could you imagine me dressed like this 100 years ago? Would anybody have accepted me in jeans and like a kind of manly jacket? Probably not. Maybe if I tied my hair back and put a mustache on, maybe. So what this all leads to is a series of different identity consequences. In America, particularly in other Western countries, we have a very, very strong dichotomy. Can somebody tell me what dichotomy means? Dichotomy is basically something that is either black or it's white. It's set into two very distinct, separate, non-overlapping categories. Okay, so the clearest example, like I said, that I can give is something that's either black or that is white. That is a dichotomy, a distinct and separate. Okay, so part of the problem that comes with that is that there are people that really think that they have to adhere to a particular norm for that dichotomy. So if you're a woman or a man, this can have different consequences in terms of how you view yourself. If you're a woman, you might not think that you fit the norm in terms of being slender enough or pretty enough. So there's the consequence of eating disorders. Now take into consideration that this also applies to men too in a different way. And I will be spending some time focusing specifically on issues of masculinity and male gender roles. So we have to remember that this isn't just something that affects women either, okay? Another thing to think about is how violence can actually be a result of having this really rigid dichotomy. There was an event that happened several years ago. Was the name Matthew Shepard ring a bell? The Laramie Project. You want to go ahead and explain what that was about?
Wasn't the gay guy in Wyoming who was killed for being homosexual?
Yeah, there was a guy that was basically tied to a fence post, beaten, and then left out in the cold to die. They found him, and he was actually alive, but he was in a coma. He died several hours later. He was beaten because he was gay, and he died subsequently to that. So this is very, very real implications for people that don't necessarily fit into these certain kinds of normative ideas of how gender and sexuality should be displayed. Okay? So this goes into the idea of negative stereotypes, where if you don't fit into a particular good stereotype, then you're a negative stereotype. If you're not slender and beautiful, then you're fat and ugly. So these are some different consequences of having this very rigid dichotomy. So, some other gender terms that we need to know. And I really want to elaborate on these a little bit because I think they're very, very much misunderstood. Okay? The first one being a hermaphrodite. Of course, that, in a nutshell, is something that has ambiguous genitals. Okay? They might have very clear-cut XY chromosomes that designate them as either a man or a woman, but they don't necessarily have the biological obvious traits that are normally associated with that. Has anybody heard of the track star Pastor, forgetting the last name? Yeah, South African. Forgetting the last name.